Hey Potters, so today what I'm going to be showing you is how to construct a hollow form for your hanging planter out of clay. So what's the first thing you're going to need tool-wise is your plastic fork. You're going to need your rib tool, and you'll get an X-Acto knife from me that I have in my desk. And then eventually we're going to need a clay hole punch, which I keep up in a vase over here underneath my flag, American flag. So first, to start a hollow form for your wall planter, your hanging planter, I need some clay. And then what I want you to do is get your clay cutter, and you're going to cut about a softball size of clay. Cover up my clay. And then what we're going to do is form this into a sphere. Just with the palms of your hands, I want you to pat and form this clay. And this is a good way to get rid of some frustration too. And I'm just patting and make it into a complete ball. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just like so. Okay, so ultimately we're going to be cutting this ball clay into 2 equal sizes. And how to do that is, since we've got it in a circle, you're going to set it on your table. You're going to get the clay cutter. You're going to go right above it, and you're just going to eyeball and cut this ball clay equally in half. Pull it through. And now you have the same amount of clay to make the same size pinch pots, okay? So we've not started with pinch pots yet, so this is your introduction to pinch pot construction. And so with our 2 pinch pots, we're gonna be making this hollow clay form to create this hanging planter, okay? So what I'm gonna do now, I have 2 pieces of clay. I'm going to form this back into a ball real quickly. Just using the palms of my hands again, tapping, patting, and turning my clay. And then I'm right-handed. My first pinch pot, I'm going to put my thumb right down the center of my clay, just like that, okay? Then it's a pinching motion. I'm gonna be pressing, not my fingertips, but I'm gonna be pressing with my thumb on the inside and my fingers out here. And I'm not using my fingertips, I'm using the pads of my fingers, because I don't want to leave big marks of my fingers on the outside of my clay surface. So what I do, you can see I went down about 3/4 of the way. I don't want to go all the way through. I'm going to start at the bottom, my fingers on the outside, my thumbs at the bottom. I start pressing, and I'm holding it sideways, and I'm turning, pressing, and I'm turning my pot as I press so I can have my clay the same thickness all the way around. Now I'm getting to the middle of my pot, and now I'm getting to the top rim. And I don't want to make this top rim super thin. I need some thickness. So if you look at my demo, you see how thick? It's about the size of an Oreo. It's not paper thin. I need this thickness, okay? So I'm going to continue to thin because my pinch pot's still really big and clunky. My walls are way too thick. And I'm going to work back my way back to the middle, and I keep turning. And this is, what stage of clay is this? This is right out of the bag. This is greenware. So it's very pliable, it's very soft. And right now I can form it, I can shape it into pretty much whatever size I want. So the bottom of my pinch pot, I don't necessarily need it flat to be like a bowl, because we're going to be making these to hang with string at the very end. So my clay's still a little thick, so I'm going to continue thinning. Now, if my fingers aren't long enough to reach the bottom of my pot, I hold it like this and use my fingers, and I press downward. Remember, if you're on your table, you can't press this clay down onto the table. It's going to stick and you're going to rip the bottom of your pot off. So always have your hand or put a piece of canvas down on your table surface, okay? So I'm gonna thin this bottom just a little bit by just pressing with my fingers, just like so, okay? I'm going around and I'm smoothing out my clay surface, just patting it with my fingers here, and continue going around. So I made one of my pinch pots for my hollow clay form. So I have to do the same thing with this pinch pot. I have to make the same identical size, so when I put my pinch pots together, they fit. So this is a little guy that I did. So I'm just gonna quickly make this pinch pot the same size as this one. I notice I have a crack there. I'm not too worried about that. I'm just going to smooth that out. I'm pinching and I'm turning and I'm going pretty quick. And I just want to make sure as I spread my clay and pinch my clay, it's staying about the same size as my first one. My clay is very green. There we go. I have a really thin wall over here. The first one's much better than my second one, okay? So I'm just gonna continue to press and thin. I'm not too worried about the inside. So if I look at these, my first one is so much nicer and even than my second one because I rushed and I was trying to get it done. So when I pick up my pinch pots, I need to make sure my rims fit. And look at this, my rims do not fit. I made this pinch pot way too wide than this one. So you're probably asking, how do I rectify that? I'm just gonna use my first pinch pot and I'm gonna pinch. I'm gonna make this bowl a little bit wider by pinching and slightly pulling outward. And then I'm gonna check and put it together like that. So now it's okay. So my rims meet. Your next step is to take your fork, score the top of both rims of your bowls. Rough it up good, don't be delicate. You need this rough surface so when you stick these two bowls together, they stay together. We don't need a slick, shiny surface. We want it to stay put. So I'm gonna get my slip and I'm gonna slip one side of my pinch pots because I don't want it to get too slimy, wet with slip. And now I'm gonna attach them. So I want my rims to meet as close as possible, just like this, okay? And then you're gonna take your fork, hold it, take your fork, and you're gonna go around this seam with your fork and you're gonna rough up that seam where they meet together. Once again, to really keep these two clay connections together, just like that. Looks kind of rough and gnarly, okay? This is where your rib tool that you've not used yet is gonna come into play. This metal rib is flexible. You're gonna use the curved side and you're gonna hold it pretty firmly. I always put 4 fingers out here, my thumb here, and now I'm gonna smooth the seam away. So I just take my rib tool and I can go at a 45-degree angle. I can go up and down, clean it off because it's gonna get dirty. I got mine sitting on the table because it's just a little easier to work with. And I'm kind of going at a 45-degree angle here to smooth out my seam because I don't want to see the seam anymore. We need the height of the pod to build our wall hanging pot planter. Clean off my tool again. We can't get this tall of a pinch pot just by doing a simple pinch pot. We want the height. So I'm just continuing to smooth, okay? Now to shape it, you see, I've still got a lot of rough stuff on it. I can get rid of that with my rib. My clay is a little sticky, meaning it's very green. I'm cleaning my rib off. And I can continue with this rib tool, and I can make this very, very pretty and smooth. And I would continue going at a 45, going sideways until I smooth it out, okay? So for time's sake, and you notice it's splitting there, that's because I was putting pressure on that seam. I can just take my rib and smooth that out, pull some clay over it. It's gonna take some practice with the rib tool. So now I have a hollow clay form. It's like a balloon, a clay balloon. So I've got to be careful not to pop it, or else I'm going to be starting all over again. I do all my smoothing and cleaning like I did with this one here first. My hollow clay form was this size until I cut some off, but I did some cleaning and smoothing before I did anything else. So let me clean my rib. Now we're going to cut the top of our pot off because we want this hanging form. Right now my clay is so wet. So I formed this one with a pointy bottom. So when it hangs, it's gonna have this nice pointy bottom. And to create that, what I did is rolled my clay on my table surface. So the end of my clay, I just roll it without popping it. And you're gonna notice I have some splits because I'm putting a little pressure on my hollow clay here, but that's all right. I can tip it a little, hold it on one end and roll it and try to create that dome. Kind of looks like a coconut right now. Won't taste like a coconut, but it might look like it. So now I've kind of got this nice pointed bottom to my hanging pot. I'm gonna worry about cleaning all this up once at the next step, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is cut the top of it off. I can work on this bottom point more once I cut the bottom off, continuing to roll it. So now I'm gonna use an X-Acto knife, your next tool. And I'm gonna cut the top of my pot off because I want a taller piece. So I'm just going to perform surgery on it here. And I'm just gonna try to cut as even as I can. I can even it up later when my clay is leather hard. Right now it's too green. Why isn't that not cutting off? Okay, there we go. So now, and you notice my clay's really thick there. That's just because it's the bottom of my pinch pot. So there, I cut the top off. And what I do next is I take my X-Acto knife and I'm gonna cut this excess clay that you see on the inside and thin this rim. The rim is the lip of your vase or your bowl, your cup, okay, so now I got an opening for my planter. So now everything else now is craftsmanship. Smoothing this out, and then if I want my opening to be bigger than this, or if I just want to smooth this out, I'm going to hold my pod sideways in my hand like so, and my finger, and I'm just going to smooth this inside out, just like so. I'm going to roll the bottom point again to create a pointy bottom, and I'm just rolling my greenware clay, just like that, to create kind of a point. You don't have to have a pointed bottom. You could have it flat if you wanted to. So I could just cup it and tap it, turn it, tap it, turn it so it's even. Just like so. So now I'm gonna set this aside and bring my first one in. So here's my first hanging planter that I made from 2 pinch pots and turned those 2 pinch pots into a hollow form, and then I cut the top off just like I showed. So when I'm happy with it, the inside I'm not so concerned about because you're going to hang a plant in it because you're going to put dirt in there. What I'd be doing next is leveling out the top of this guy, and I can do that very easily, and I forgot to grab that tool. With a rasping tool. So the rasping tool looks like a cheese grater, and there's a right and a wrong way to use it. You really can only use this if your clay is leather hard, not greenware, like the first piece I just constructed. So you hold, I'm just gonna hold my pot this way, and I'm gonna drag my tool across here. Works just like you're grating cheese. And my clay's still pretty wet. See how it's bending on me? I'd probably let my pod sit and dry a little more before I rasp it, but I needed to show you this tool. The rasping tool removes excess clay and it helps shape your pottery. So once I'm happy with the top, I'll take a little water and then I will smooth the top. And then ultimately you're going to be poking holes with this clay punch. These are on my shelf. We're going to go down probably about quarter of an inch. I'm gonna poke a hole, and if you notice, it makes a nice pretty hole. Clean out the clay from the hole punch, please. And then we're gonna do 3 holes. We're gonna do a triangle shaped hole. I'm gonna put a hole here. I'm going to put one right here so it hangs level. So when I push my clay tool in, I twist, support my wall, and pull it out. Then clean out my tool, then turn, because I want to put a hole right here, because I've got 2 here, and I want 1 here, so when I hang it, it hangs level. So I'm going to put a hole. Let me make sure I can see. I'll turn it so you can see. I'm going to twist, I'm going to support my wall, twist, push through, and pull it out gently. And then I've got my holes for my hanging pot. So there's lots of issues with this. I need to take some water in my fingertip. I need to do some cleaning. Make sure the rim doesn't have any sharp edges. I'm going to clean up my holes inside. So I have a lot of issues with craftsmanship, and craftsmanship's all about smoothing and cleaning your pottery before it gets bone dry. You don't want any sharp edges because they'll slice you open when it gets bisque fired. I'll flip it upside down, and I'm going to use my rib tool, which is the metal shape beam tool, and I'm going to continue to smooth this outside surface just by holding the curved side, pulling up. Just like so. And then next video, we're going to talk about sgraffito and adding a surface design to the outside of this hanging pot. All right, hanging planter made from 2 pinch pots, and then turning those 2 pinch pots into a hollow clay form.